In what was, I think, the most lopsided win since we started this video series 8 weeks ago, 42% of you went with bad Juju. And this is another weapon that's more or less been collecting dust in my vault for quite some time. But that's kind of what's made this video series fun so far. You guys have been picking some off the beaten path weapons, and historically, those have been my favorite ones to test out. So we'll see how bad Juju's faring in the current PvP sandbox when in the hands of an average player. Bad Juju is an exotic kinetic pulse rifle firing at 450 rounds per minute with 27 rounds in the magazine. For the weapon stats, it does have good marks in stability and airborne effectiveness with a vertical recoil direction of 85. Everything else there is pretty average, save for the range, which is a touch low. Bad Juju's intrinsic trait is String of Curses. Kills will fully refill the magazine, award a stacking damage bonus for a short duration, and grant additional super energy based on the number of stacks of String of Curses that you have built up. It also does inherently fire in full auto, which at one point was a feature, but with that being a toggleable accessibility option, not so much anymore. There is no true exotic perk for Bad Juju, but it does come stocked with hipfire grip, giving the weapon better performance in situations where you just can't be bothered to aim down sights. And once you have the exotic catalyst unlocked, which was a costly endeavor for those of us playing during Season of Opulence, String of Curses duration window will be extended out to 5 seconds. On to Bad Juju's damage, which at base does mirror that of other 450 RPM pulses. Crits are showing for 32, body shots 18. Both are getting a pretty hard roundup. I'm figuring true values to be 31.15 and 17.05. For the optimal time to kill, typically you're going to be looking at 0.87 seconds. Versus Guardians running tier 6 resilience or higher, you'll need 7 crits in one body. Tier 3 to tier 5, you can go 6 and 2. And if by some miracle you do find a Guardian running tier 2 resilience or less, you can down them in 0.8 seconds with 7 crits. Body shot time to kills, 1.67 seconds versus tier 6 or higher with 14 shots landed, but you can hit 1.6 versus tier 5 or lower with 1 less bullet required. For the optimal range, Bad Juju will hit for full damage from 33 meters in. Past that, damage fall off begins to occur. With String of Curses, a kill is going to fully refill the magazine, and it has a 5-second duration that can be refreshed with subsequent kills. It stacks up to 5 times, with each stack netting you about 10% more damage, which is half of the benefit that you would see in PvE. Now, I didn't round up 5 other Guardians to go really in depth into this testing, but mathematically, this is how those numbers should work out. To get a sense of the super cooldown benefits, I was on Nova Bomb running tier 5 intellect. Listed cooldown was 7 minutes and 31 seconds, but since a kill with any weapon nets you some super energy, we needed a control. So I secured 10 kills with revision 0 first to see how quick my super would come back. I had that clocked in at 6:14, which is a minute and 15 seconds quicker than the listed time. Repeating the same process, now with Bad Juju, my super came back in 5 minutes and 29 seconds. So with 10 kills, that is 45 seconds quicker than the control. But we should see better returns if we have String of Curses stacks built up when securing those kills. So instead of downing 10 singular Guardians, we'll do 5 double kills. And the additional benefit wasn't a ton. It cut another 6 seconds. Which isn't nothing, and would get better if you really went on a murder spree with this thing. But just the singular kills with Bad Juju do provide a pretty decent return in their own right. Moving on to the 5 games, and I will be heading in on my Voidwalker. I strayed away from it the past couple weeks, and I missed it, so we're back. Even took a little bit of inspiration from Bad Juju with the purple and green on the threads. For the exotic armor piece, I just threw on my PvP default, Ophidian Aspect. Some improved reload and handling is always welcome, with my offhand weapon being Retold Tale. At one point it was my favorite shotgun, but I haven't used it in a while, and it seemed like an appropriate time to put a few rounds through it. And as usual, the applicable armor mods are stacked on to try to get our featured weapon, Bad Juju, a bit more help. First match of the set was on Distant Shore, and I'll tell you right now, everything goes downhill from here. I came out hot. Well, hot for me, with a 4.4 efficiency and 22 defeats. And of the 5, this was the closest and most entertaining match of the set. It was back and forth the whole way, and in the closing seconds, my team secured a few kills to come out with the win. Second game was on Dead Cliffs, and I was squaring off against the same 4 stack from the first match. And evidently, they weren't too keen on losing that first game, so they came to grind our bones in the dust, which they succeeded at. I did the best I could, but they were aggressive and they were relentless. And I really don't think 153 to 90 tells the tale of how poorly this game actually went. Then this match on Midtown happened. 152 to 48. You would think at some point the mercy rule would have been activated, but I guess the enemy team stayed just within the threshold the entire time. It was ugly though. It was one of those matches where I felt like I spent most of my time running around the map looking for someone to shoot at. And when that happens, it's usually a telltale sign that things aren't going too well for the enemy team. Match 4 was on Rusted Lands, and this wasn't a bad game. We fell behind in score and basically stayed behind the whole match. But the teams did feel pretty evenly matched, and there was a couple fun full team engagements around the capture points. You know, it almost played out like you would think a control game should, with two teams fighting for the zones. Last match of the set, we headed back to Distant Shore, and I was hoping for a repeat of the first game, but no such luck for me on a personal level at least. My team as a whole did secure a pretty easy win, and while I'm not going to pout about a 1.88 efficiency with 15 defeats, it was just one of those games where I knew I could have done better, and I felt like I should have done better. But hey, end of the day, a win's a win. Overall, 3-2 for the set, 2.4 efficiency rating, 17 average defeats, and 10.6 of them Bad Juju chipped in on. And over the past few weeks, I feel like I may have been getting my Crucible legs back under me. And keep in mind that is relative to the caliber player that I am. You know, I'm not someone who's typically going to slay out in a match. 50 bomb isn't even in my vocabulary. Slowly but surely though, my head seems to be working its way out of my rear end. Regarding Bad Juju though, I used to hate this gun, in PvP at least, and I could never put my finger on why exactly. About a year ago I think, Bungie did fix its recoil. I believe it used to be front-loaded, like an auto rifle, and it was reworked to function more like a standard pulse. And whatever they did seemed to help. It does feel better than I remember, and I don't hate it anymore. But there is still something with this gun that just doesn't agree with me. Every now and then I come across the weapon that I describe as floaty, and this is one of them. And that's kind of similar to how people used to refer to guns as crispy, but could never define what crispy meant. But there's just gotta be some combination of the stats, the recoil, the look, the sound. There's just some disconnect here for me that hinders my ability to feel the gun. Which is a pretty abstract concept in its own right. I mean, you can't really feel pixels on a screen. It's tough to describe. But what it leads to for me is not being able to consistently keep the reticle where I need it in a gunfight. Or maybe I'm just bad, which is a real possibility. Then the range is a bit low, which does hurt the weapon's overall accuracy at longer distances. I would describe Bad Juju as a true mid-range pulse, and it just isn't tuned as well as other pulse rifles for those longer range engagements. And I did often find myself asking a bit too much of it in this respect. Also, I do a really bad job at making use of its exotic benefits. I cannot break my shoot, dip, reload, re-engage habit, even though when I do get a kill with Bad Juju, it gets the auto reload. I think my long-running affinity for kill clip weapons just has my brain forever stuck in that mindset. Then the String of Curses damage buff, while it certainly does help when dealing with multiple targets, I believe you do need to be carrying 2 stacks to start seeing the potential for a 2-burst kill. So that would be realized on the third Guardian that you're trying to down in short order. For better players, that can be a benefit. For me, that's just not gonna happen very often. And along those same lines, the super gains. If you're slaying out with Bad Juju, the potential is there for multiple supers in a single match. But me on Nova Bomb with a mid-tier cooldown, and as someone who doesn't exactly rack up the kills, the best I could hope for was to get my super a little bit earlier. And that can be nice if I'm getting my Nova Bomb up right around the same time that Wells and Bubbles are starting to come out, but you do gotta get a good amount of final blows in early to make it worth your while. And looking back on things, I was pretty negative here, but like I said earlier, this gun just doesn't resonate with me or my playstyle. But that doesn't mean that it's not gonna align with yours. You might love the feel of this gun. You might be someone who can rack up a ton of kills and get a huge benefit from its exotic trait. Different strokes for different folks, you know? So if the gun interests you or you haven't pulled it out in a while, give it a shot. I mean, you got nothing to lose. And be sure to let me know how it goes for you down in the comments. The poll for next week's 5 games video, as always, will be up on Friday. And I had a few people ask, if you don't get the notification for it and you don't know where to find that poll, head into the channel's community tab, and it should be the latest post right there at the top staring you in the face. But that's gonna do it for this one, Guardians. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.